Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Vibe Selection. As you already know, I am your host, Kyra, and in today's episode, we have vibing out with us today author, entrepreneur, world traveling influencer, Giovanna Silvestre, that got her start working in Hollywood on ABC's Wind of the Willows and has worked with people such as Kenneth Bronna from Marvel's Thor, Anthony Hopkins, and Natalie Portman, just to name a few people. Giovanna has been featured in Forbes, NBC, the London Daily Post, and has worked with brands such as T-Mobile, Audi, Crocs, and the Ritz Carlton, as well as so many more people. And on today's episode, we will be discussing her latest book that she has written called Confused Girl, Find Your Peace in the Chaos. Miss Giovanna, thank you for vibing out with me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's morning here, so I'm still waking up with my coffee.
Yeah, me too. I'm trying to get the sleep out of my eyes and wake up. So I want to get on what a confused girl is. So according to Google, because I got to cite on my sources, we don't want to plagiarize around here. A confused girl refers to a young woman who is experiencing a state of uncertainty, bewilderment, or lack of understanding about a situation, decision, or information, often feeling lost or unaware of how to proceed. But I want to know what your definition of a confused girl is. Let us know.
Confused girl for me equals superwoman. That's my
Hmm.
definition of a confused girl because I think, and the reason why I called my brand Confused Girl is because when I was confused and went through my depression, I really shamed myself. And I felt really bad about being in a situation where I didn't have all the answers. I honestly didn't know who I was,
Mhm.
didn't know where I was going. I was just questioning everything. And I I realize now that that was a great time of discovery and it was a very necessary step to get me to where I am now. So for me, confusion is a virtue.
Mm.
It's a virtue now. It's not something you should be ashamed of because without the confusion, you're not really going anywhere. You're staying stagnant. But when you're confused, you're in that bewilderment. You're
Mhm.
like, okay, now I'm on a journey to figure things out. So there's actually no reason to feel ashamed when you don't have all the answers. It's actually, I kind of think you could get excited about it. It's something you
Mhm.
can get excited about it because you're like, I'm about to go somewhere I've never been.
Right. Now, did you write this book feeling like you were running into a lot of women who were confused girls? And I know you had your own experience, obviously, and that's kind of part of the reason why you wrote the book. But were there a lot of women that were coming up to you who were experiencing some similar things to what you were?
I actually wrote this book for me when I was going through what I was going through. That was like when I was writing it, that's so yes, all the confused girls.
All the confused girls all around the world. There's a
All
whole
the
community
confused
of us.
girls all around the world. And I was thinking about me at that time and what I would have needed to hear, what would have been helpful and like made me feel better about my situation.
Mhm.
So yeah, I wrote it for all the confused girls and confused women.
Mhm.
Um, I- because the thing is as you go through life, you're not going to be confused in your 30s about what you were in your 20s or in your 40s about what you were confused about in your 30s, right? Because you grow, but you're always going to be confused about something. I mean, I have a friend who's, 50
Mhm.
and she is going on dates and she's really confused about why this guy said he really wanted to see her again and then just kind of disappeared. And
Mhm.
so
Ghosting doesn't stop at any age, huh?
No, it does not. It does not. And so she's kind of like looping in her mind about the situation. And I was like, this is so funny. It really is true. confusion follows you through life. Something could hit you all of a sudden, whether it be also somebody passing away, having a child, getting married, losing your job, getting a new job. It's just there's always going to be these confusing moments. So if
Mhm.
we can learn how to utilize it to propel us forward and not be scared of it, that was my goal with the book.
Wonderful. So let's go back a little bit. Okay, so you're graduating from college, you went to USC, you get your job as a post-production coordinator, you're working with the likes of Kenneth Bronna, Natalie Portman, so many other influential people within Hollywood. And then in 2014, you're, at this fabulous Hollywood elite party and you are tootsie rolling all around the party with a martini in your hand with the extra olives and extra dirty style, and you just living your best life. And then there's a point where you are feeling these negative thoughts that are coming across your mind. What do you feel like was the trigger of these thoughts in that particular moment? Because this was a catalyst for a big shakeup in your life, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I I felt as if I wasn't living my life. I felt um because throughout throughout that time and probably throughout my life from up until that point, I had been doing things to look good to other people.
Mm,
I I was doing things that I thought I should be doing. I was doing things I thought made me cool and looked good, gave me some bragging rights, but I wasn't really I didn't even know who I was. I didn't even know what I wanted, but I just knew that being in this world wasn't making me, it didn't make me feel fulfilled and it wasn't making me happy.
mm,
And I felt like I should be happy and fulfilled because it's Hollywood. And at a very young age, I'm, in this big arena and I'm with studio execs and celebrities, and everybody's telling me that I'm going to move up fast because, I'm talented. And so I felt this pressure to stay in it because of all of that.
mm.
But then I just knew it wasn't in alignment with what I was supposed to do here or who I was. So I just felt this big void.
Mm. Now, well, you're at this party and you feel and you hear those thoughts coming through your mind. Do you stay at this party? Do you leave? What happens next?
Yeah, I stayed at the party for a little bit and then I was just yeah, and then I went home.
Hmm.
And as you know in the book, I was like in my bed like having a freak out and like I need to something has to change because I just felt so low.
Hmm.
I felt like an imposter. And also when you don't know yourself, you will feel like an imposter anywhere you go
Hmm.
because you are not walking with a inner security and knowing of yourself.
Hmm.
And so I also think it wasn't just the entertainment industry. It was me. It was me not having done the work to figure out who I was and what I wanted. And I didn't, and also I didn't love myself.
Mm. Why do you feel like, what do you feel like was the reason for you not loving yourself?
I think that my entire life was built up around what I could achieve, accolades,
Mm.
and like kind of image based.
Hmm.
And I wasn't living from a space of I feel good about myself and I know who I am. It was just a lot of it was for show.
Hmm.
And that doesn't lead to, that doesn't give you a happy ending unless unless you can change the course.
Right. But I can see that because it seemed like most of your life in reading the book, you were a overachiever. I mean, you made the honor roll growing up. You're a good Catholic girl. You help your parents out in their restaurant. So you did all of these things. And then you're in Hollywood now, where you really got to live up to standard. And I think those are probably even bigger shoes to fill than just living up to your parents' standard, because now you're really in the big leagues. And everything matters. And, it's kind of hard to continue to obtain that. You definitely can lose yourself in trying to appease others all of the time.
Yes. Yes. And that definitely was the case. And I was a big people pleaser. And that kind of went from, you're right, like people pleasing with making sure my parents were proud of me, then going into the entertainment industry and then making sure the director was good with me and the other people I worked with were good with me. And yeah, I actually did give a lot of myself, and I never gave myself to myself. It was giving it out to other people, which
Mhm.
is exhausting.
Now, there's so many controversial things in regards to Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
And, we hear about all of the things that happen with people like Harvey Weinstein that was going around and sexually assaulting women and, the whole Me Too movement that was going on. And then we hear things about people like Jeffrey Epstein and the Diddy's of the world.
Yeah.
Now, when you were going to these Hollywood elite parties, did you ever go to a Diddy party?
No, I never went to a Diddy party.
Do you know anyone that went to a Diddy party?
Well, I had a friend, and this was maybe 2, 3 months before. No, maybe it was like 6 months before the Diddy stuff came out, right? And I was talking to my friend, and she said, "Oh, my other friend goes to Diddy parties. We should go sometime." And I was like, "Oh my God, that'd be so cool." Yeah. 'Cause I mean, I honestly, I'm not in that world, and that's the music world. And I didn't know about, I mean, had I known, I would be like, hell no, I'm never going to a Diddy party. But I was like, oh yeah, that would be interesting. But then it never happened. So grateful. Never happened. So I've never been to a Diddy party.
Okay, well, we're in the clear there, so the FBI don't need to come knocking on your door. Or Tony Bigsby, he doesn't need to be buzzing you up.
No, 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 no. Nope. No, I'm
That's
good.
good to know. Now, did you know anyone or did you ever experience any of the Me Too type of stuff that was going on in Hollywood?
You know, I'm really grateful that did not happen to me, but I also was working in production. Like I was working behind the scenes, and it can still happen behind the scenes for sure.
Mhm.
But I do think we're hearing a lot with this stuff. It's a lot more about actresses. Because I mean, what are they going to do? Offer me a better pay as an assistant or like an associate producer role? I mean, the stakes aren't like so high, but if you're going to be in a film where you might make 20 million and win an Oscar, the stakes are high for that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
as far as the actors and actresses. So it didn't happen to me. Some other things happened that weren't great, um, which I write about in my book. But sexual harassment per se didn't happen. But I think that's also because I have a very strong personality, and I and if anybody did anything to me, I'd like call my Italian father, and there would be there would have been like some hell to pay that would have not gone down well for them.
Might have got whacked.
Yeah. It's like, watch out. No, I think honestly, being Italian has protected me in certain ways.
And they own an Italian restaurant, so there's probably a
Yeah.
lot of, stuff going on in the back alley and
Yes.
stuff. They don't want no smoke.
No, I mean, my family was not in the mafia. They were very hardworking, good people. But I mean, we definitely do have like a friend in Italy that is connected and stuff. So, but not us, but we know people. But point being is
You know the fixers.
point being is that it didn't happen to me, thank God. But I felt it when I was in it. I felt it. I knew that stuff happened. I intuitively was very aware. And I would say to people, I'd get so angry when, at the award shows, the actors and actresses like go up there and they act all holier than thou and like they're so loving and blah blah blah. And I'm like, why aren't they helping these big actresses? Why aren't they helping like the little actresses? Why aren't they saying something about the abuse and about like the horrible culture that is Hollywood? And so I would get very angry about that after having worked in the industry. And I was like, BS, 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 you're not holier than thou because you are letting all this stuff happen. And so I was saying that for a very long time before Me Too happened.
Mhm. Now, you in your book discuss people that you worked with or worked for, such as Put Down Paula and Queen Victoria. And obviously, we're talking about very toxic work environments. So, what do you think is some of the reasonings for a lot of these toxic work environments within the entertainment industry? And what were your feelings with dealing with those types of situations with these particular people?
So these two women that you're talking about had very big positions, especially Queen Victoria. And I for people that don't know, I call her Queen Victoria in the book, and because I don't use her real name, but she was a very high-powered talent manager in Hollywood. Like she's even been featured in like some books about Hollywood. She was a top agent at CAA when she was like the first female agent at CAA, something like that.
Mm,
And CAA represents all the biggest celebrities. So you know, this is the thing about these two women. And I like have so much respect for them, even though they kind of tortured me and verbally abused me at work.
Gotta
But
love them.
oh yeah, I gotta love them because they were such trailblazers. They were going into environments where it was all men.
Mm.
So now I'm walking into an environment where I have a female boss who's not going to sexually harass me. I'm working around, she has, two other female agents in her office. But she didn't have that courtesy. Like, I'm sure she did get sexually harassed. I'm sure who knows what happened to her in that world. It wasn't easy.
Mhm.
And back in the day, they just kind of took it. They just kind of had to take it and fight on. So like she was such a difficult, I felt very tortured soul. And but she's making millions. She's one of the biggest managers in Hollywood. And but I just am like, you know what? She must have been through so much to become this way. Yeah. And so I had a lot of compassion and like respect for her journey. But I also was like, I never want to work for anybody like this again. Like she was literally killing me.
Yeah, it leaves a scar on you, you know,
Yeah. It was
and it
very,
can, yeah. And it can really cause, a lot of harm. But this kind of, I don't know if you watched the Martha Stewart documentary, very fabulous, by the way. But
yes, fabulous.
these women kind of remind me of her in the sense because
Yes.
in her documentary, she is detailing how she was in a man's world essentially, and
Yeah.
she had to really bust her balls, for lack of a better word, to really prove herself and to get people to respect her because it's a man's world in that industry. And if you're not strong, if you don't have a sense of direction and you don't have the tenacity or the wits to up to, to stand for any of this, you will definitely crumble. And I think Martha Stewart says it best, women in business don't cry. We don't cry.
Yeah, no, it's true. And then she said, everybody they call women in business like the B word, right?
Right.
And I would say both of the women that I worked for too were acted like the B word a lot of the time, you know?
Mhm.
But what they went through, I mean, oh my gosh, like we stand on their shoulders because of their trailblazing and hardcoreness. We now have so much more opportunity. So I like have so much respect for these women, but you can tell what because of the way that they are, you can see how difficult their journey was. And what I also think is very interesting about these women, because you're so right, it's so similar to Martha Stewart. It's like they all kind of have that same
Grittiness.
tenacity,
Yeah.
coldness, angry, kind of bitterness as well. There's like a bitterness there.
Hmm.
And I remember when I was working for her, I was like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to end up like this. And see, and now women don't have to because
Hmm.
there is more opportunity and we get to work with other women and men have to behave better than they used to, you know? So
Hmm.
uh, we really rest on their shoulders for sure.
We do. And for a woman who may be the Martha Stewart or the put down Paula, the Queen Vicky of their particular industry, and they're going around just being just awful to people, and them listening to this particular interview, and they may want to change that part about them, what are some tips that you feel that can be useful for someone who may be creating a toxic work environment and not be treating their employees the best, but that want to actually change it around?
Well, the thing is like you don't have to be like that anymore. I really do believe Martha Stewart and the women I worked for, they were a product of that environment. But now you don't have to be that way. And if you are that way, I think that there is something going on outside of the working environment
Hmm.
that's the probably the issue. I just don't see the point in being cruel to people and abusing people.
Hmm.
I don't, that's not good karma. It's not good for your soul. It's
No,
like,
it's not.
and I think that's where you have to make peace with that. You got to go, okay, I'm being like this. I don't have to be like this. And actually now this younger generation, we like my generation, we would stick it out, put our heads down and just stick it out and get verbally abused and just go through. But this generation now is like, you can't talk to me like that. I'm
Hmm.
out.
Yeah,
You
which is
know,
great.
so I actually think that attitude is going to teach those people that they can't behave that way.
Hmm.
I think just the mere fact that they won't be able to hold employees
Yeah.
is going to indirectly teach them. And I would say, as far as like a tip for those people, I think you have to explore why you're behaving that way. Like, start asking yourself the questions: why do I feel the need to dominate this person or be cruel to this person? What is this really getting me? Is there a more efficient, better way to be that also feels better to myself?
Hmm. Yeah.
So.
And the great thing is nowadays, people don't have to be working in these sort of environments. There's so many more opportunities for jobs now where you can be a creator and influencer, such as yourself. Or hell, you can even be an Uber and Lyft driver and be your own boss and make your own money and have your own schedule. You don't have to tolerate these toxic work environments with these particular bosses. And in the climate we're in right now, where people are losing their jobs, people are having to find creative ways to gain a source of income right now. So,
No, you're so right. It's so true. And I honestly think we're approaching a world where AI is going to take most jobs.
right. It's already
So,
started in Hollywood.
huh?
It started in Hollywood.
Oh yeah. I mean, that whole structure is coming down, I believe. I believe um I think in the next couple years, the music industry will just totally change. These evil people at the very top that got to perpetuate evilness, I mean, satanic stuff, I think is all coming down. I think the whole Hollywood thing, I mean, it's already been like chiseled at, but that's going to come down,
Mm-hmm.
which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I really believe that this is one of the most important times where you actually need to figure out who you are as a person and love yourself as a person, because everything else that you might have attached yourself to outside of yourself is gonna change.
Mm-hmm.
So if your identity is your job and that's the only thing that makes you feel like worthy to be here on earth and it gets taken away, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So people, and I think that's why my book is actually divine timing. It's coming out at this time because things are about to get even more confusing and they're already really confusing. And I think it's about to like shift over into way more confusing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. Especially with the political climate that we're in right now. A lot is going to change in the world.
Oh,
It already has started.
yeah, it's already started. It politically, technologically, um, we're in unprecedented times, and we have been, but it's gonna even get crazier.
So how do you feel like someone can get spiritually in tune in the climate that we're in right now? How can someone stay grounded spiritually with all the chaos that's going on, you feel like?
I really think you have to monitor how much you're taking in from the news, from social media. I think people need to like respect and love themselves more to go, okay, no more of this. This is not making me feel good.
Hmm.
Like, you kind of gotta be in tune with yourself to not get so swept away and brainwashed. There's a lot of brainwashing washing happening.
Hmm.
And so I really do think you have to limit the amount of things you're taking in on a daily basis and go for a walk.
Hmm.
Go for a walk by the beach. Go for a walk in a park. And stop listening to music for a second. Stop listening to a podcast for a second and just like look around and really be present with where you're at. I have my little coffee ritual in the morning and I have two espresso machines. I'm so
Hmm.
Italian. It's really my moment to go, okay, which type of coffee do I want this morning? And then like make my little coffee and then I like kind of sit there and thaw out with my coffee in the morning and slowly wake up and it just makes me so happy. I find that time so precious,
Hmm.
because it's just my time with myself. And I think everyone should have something, that they
Hmm.
do, whether it's a workout every day they do, or a walk, or a meditation, some time to reconnect with yourself. Because if you're not reconnecting with yourself and checking in, you are going to be attaching yourself to all the voices outside of yourself
Hmm.
that don't care about you, don't know
Right.
you, don't care about you.
Hmm. Absolutely. I love all those tips. So,
Yay.
so you have your breakdown that happens, and eventually you go back to your parents' restaurant. You go back to square one,
Yeah.
and you try to figure out what's your next move for yourself, right? And
Yes.
and then in the midst of all of this, you come across a healer, right?
Uh-huh.
That helps you to kind of give you some guidance tools to figuring out what was kind of stalling you, what was causing all of this depression. Explain to me how you came across this healer and how they helped you immensely not become a confused girl anymore, essentially.
Okay, so so I after I left Hollywood, I went to my parents' Italian restaurant and I thought I'd take that over. And I was there for almost 2 years and I was very unhappy. So I left. I said, I this is not me either. Come back to LA. And that's when I fall into even more of a depression. And I'm like, I have worked my entire 20s in industries that I don't want to be in. I've wasted all this time, which is not true.
Mm.
I see that now that that's not true, but that's how I felt at that moment. And I'm a loser, and I maybe nothing can ever make me happy. There's something inherently wrong with me. I just went like down, down, down. So after I started doing the tools that I discuss in the book to kind of get myself out of this funk. So I
Mhm.
get myself out of this deep depression, but I'm like still confused. I'm still like I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I go on this journey, the spiritual journey, and I'm doing one new thing every week to figure out who I am. I'm doing lots of yoga, meditation. And at this time, I was working part-time jobs because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just was working part-time jobs just to have extra time to allow me to figure out what I want to do. So one of these jobs was I'd interview people for their YouTube videos, stuff like that. So this healer had an ad out that he's looking for someone to interview him for his YouTube.
Mhm.
So I applied to that, and he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, come in for an interview." And the interview was actually at his house. Um which might seem weird, but I was he has a home office. It was fine. So, but I go to his house and I walk in, and it was the craziest feeling. I felt as if I was home for the first time in my life, and I just started crying.
Mm.
I feel like that the way I felt is the way when people have near-death experiences, they when they transition to the other side, they say, I feel like I was home.
Mhm.
And it was such a beautiful, intense, amazing feeling of just pure love and peace. And I would say I felt a tinge of that walking into his home. It
Mm.
was really crazy. And that's never happened to me anywhere else. So after that, I was like, I always used to love coming home to my place, but I'm like, this isn't really home though. It feels good to come home to my place, but it's not home like that was. That was crazy.
Right.
And so I had this crazy connection with him. Actually, when I walked in, he said, I told you we would meet again.
Mm. You're
I
like,
was
well,
like,
where did we meet the first time,
I
sir?
know, I know. I'm like, oh my
You
God.
crazy man.
I know,
I'm in a state asylum. Where am I?
I know. I'm like, oh my God. But it did feel that way. It felt as if we were meeting again. It was
Did
really
you
intense.
experience?
Yeah. So when I left his house, he had this room full of crystals, and he said, go into that room and pick two crystals that you love and take them home with you. That's my gift to you.
Mhm.
So I went in, I grabbed the two crystals, and I took them home. And then while I was meditating one day, I had this vision. Oh my gosh, I'm going to create a yoga wear line inspired by healing crystals,
Mhm.
which is so kind of like I had
Very
no idea how.
creative.
Yeah, it's creative. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I don't know, but I just know that these crystals are so beautiful. They have to be on yoga leggings because I was doing lots of yoga at the time, and this was the thing. I created this over a decade ago.
Mm.
Crystal inspired yoga pants. So this was at a time when nobody was making yoga leggings. The only people that were making yoga leggings was like Lululemon, but they were
Mhm.
very niche, very small. And the only people that knew about Lululemon were yogis. And there was like a couple of other smaller brands. But I was a bit of a trailblazer with the yoga leggings, and it did blow up for like 5 years,
Mhm.
the business.
And I like that concept because I mean, I don't think most people would think of putting crystals on yoga pants, but it makes a lot of sense. If you're doing yoga, you're meditating, you're getting yourself centered, and the crystals kind of help as tools, of centering yourself as well. So That actually is one of the most creative things I think I've ever heard of. So you did your
Oh,
thing with that.
oh my gosh, thanks, girl. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful. The leggings are really beautiful. They're just amazing colors. And what I love is that every pair represents a different crystal. So they could be very intentional
Hmm.
because, on the website you can see what that crystal helps with. And so I wanted to make something intentional.
Hmm. And now during this time also, you were trying to find ways to be able to kind of get your business started and, getting the money to be able to back it and all of that. And I think these are things that a lot of people don't really discuss when it comes to being an entrepreneur is how do you get money? Not everybody is born with the silver spoon in their mouth and can have mommy and daddy write the check for them. But you did something that was pretty creative again, because you are a creative and you became a brand ambassador for Uber at
Yes.
its start, right? And you were the one signing people up and getting the little $50, and so were they getting the $50. You didn't have to
Yeah.
drive nobody around, and you had your little BMW, and you was zooming, thought you was being a hottie on the side, and was about to holler at him, and you thought you were going to get lucky in that way, but got lucky in another way. So I love how this all worked out for you.
I mean, I know it's so it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Oh my gosh, I love that you remembered that story so specifically. That's fabulous.
Can't forget. I'm an Uber driver, so I know. Mm. These are things that stay in your mind, other Uber drivers.
So should I explain to the audience a little bit about?
Yes. What happened in that moment, and do you feel like it was something that was kind of meant for it to be for you at that time?
Yes, so at this point I was working little part-time jobs that, you'd make like 25 bucks an hour.
Hmm.
And and which in LA I mean, LA is so expensive.
Yeah.
That's like nothing. So I mean, as you know, I pull up to a gas station. I see this guy like smiling at me, and I think, oh, he's cute. He's gonna come up and talk to me. But then he has like this little gadget with him, and he's like, "Listen, if you sign up to be a Uber brand ambassador, or if you sign up to be an Uber driver, then you'll get a $50 gift card, and you never even have to drive." And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, Uber's doing this promotion because they need more drivers on the road.
Hmm.
And I was like, so you're going to give me $50 right now, like $50 gift card. And he goes, yes. I was like, okay, I'll sign up. And then I asked him, I said, how much do you make? And he goes, well, when every time I sign somebody up and give them a $50 gift card, I get $50.
Mm.
I was like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, you sign up 10 people, that's $500.
The math was mathing.
I know. I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. So, I was like, I want to do this. And he's like, yeah, you should do it. And well, I had a friend who worked at Uber in corporate.
Hmm.
So I contacted him and he's like, yeah, I'll hook you up. I'll hook you up. And I was like, yeah, I want to be an Uber brand ambassador. So he hooked me up as an Uber brand ambassador, but I didn't want to be in LA because, I knew so many people in LA. I would be so embarrassed to be working at a gas station, like standing up at a gas station for 8 hours, going up and talking to people. So I told my friend, I said, put me in Orange County because I don't know anybody in Orange County. So I would drive an hour to Orange County and I was at gas stations for 8 hours a day getting people to sign up as Uber drivers. And I got out of debt. I was in $10,000 of debt for
Wow.
starting my line. I got out of debt. I was able to fund my line. It was it was great. Such a blessing. Such a blessing.
And the universe, it works in mysterious ways. Here you are thinking you're just gonna go pump some gas and maybe, catch a date. And then it landed you into this wonderful opportunity that was that catapulted you into being able to launch your activewear line, in which you were one of the, people that paved the way for becoming an influencer. Because, like you said, influencing wasn't a thing back then, nor really was even Ubering at the time. It wasn't really as popular. So,
Yeah.
so I, looking at how things have just took off with influencers nowadays, what do you kind of feel about the realm of influencing now?
Well, it's so funny because I never was aiming to be an influencer. That wasn't a goal. Actually, in the very beginning, I was using models to model my activewear. And I met this man who worked in the entertainment industry, and we had lunch. And he looked at my stuff and he said, I don't want to see these girls, these random girls in your leggings. I want to see you are your brand. I want to see you in your leggings. I want to see you in your leggings at the Grove in Santa Monica in Venice Beach. He's like, that's what I want to see. And I was like, oh, okay, that's really good advice. And I actually wasn't so comfortable being in front of the camera. I was really insecure. But I did it for the brand. I was like, okay, if this is the way I'm going to sell it, then I'm going to do this. Then I started getting more comfortable. Then I started enjoying it. Then I thought, okay, I could get some free travel. I could get hooked up and I love traveling. So I thought, okay, let me start to do more traveling all over the world in my activewear.
Mhm.
And so it literally was just, I enjoy this. I'm going for this. I enjoy this. I'm going for this. It was all me following my joy and what was inspiring to me.
Mhm.
And then I remember I was living in Berlin for a year, and my friend introduced me as her influencer friend. And that was the first time that I had been called an influencer, heard that
Term.
term associated with
Mhm.
me. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Because before influencer, it was blogger.
Mm. And you had a blog
I did.
that
Yeah.
led you to some world traveling.
Yes. Yeah. I had a vlog on YouTube, which now people go back and see it. It's like so dated. It's very, very dated now. And now I mostly just do everything on Instagram.
Mhm.
But yeah, so then I'm like this influencer and I was like, cool. You know, and
Yeah.
I make a little money from it. I'll get some brand deals and
Mhm.
I do a lot of collaborations with hotels and stuff. So it's great, but that was never the aim. That it was never the aim.
Mhm. Well, I think it's fascinating to see how being a content creator, being an influencer, had just taken off so much, and it's created this opportunity for people to get a lot of exposure and get a lot of, businesses off of the ground, such as yourself. So even with a lot of success, there always are a few setbacks because there's the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And at one point, you were going to have your leggings in Nordstrom's, right?
Uh-huh.
And you were all excited for this opportunity. And then there was the letdown when someone didn't feel like your particular leggings were good enough to be displayed in their stores. And in that moment, you kind of had to try to lift yourself up to make yourself feel good. And you said to yourself, this person may not like it, but there's a group of other people that like it, thousands of people that actually liked it. And you've seen people riding around on their bicycles with your leggings on.
Yeah.
What are some ways in which you feel like people can deal with some of the setbacks of being an entrepreneur, whether that's, the loss of money because you may be putting a lot out there, but you may not get back what you feel like you should in return. So how can someone kind of deal with some of the failures of being an entrepreneur?
Well, as I do talk about in the book, like I just don't believe in failure anymore. I just don't think that that's real. I think things don't meet your expectations,
Mm,
but I don't think trying is ever failure.
mhm,
I think it's all a learning experience. Um, even like things I've done. where I've lost money, I've learned an invaluable experience. For instance, during COVID, I bought all these. Discussed this in the book too about following following your joy and following your inspiration and not following money, or you feel like you should be doing this. So during COVID, I thought, okay, I'm going to buy all these Pilates rings and I'm going to sell them on Amazon. And I spent, I mean, I think I lost thousands of dollars with these stupid Pilates rings that I bought and was trying to sell on Amazon. And I never wanted to do it. I wasn't inspired by the idea. I just felt like I should do it. I should do something during COVID. I I yeah, should be doing something. People are going to be home. They'll need Pilates rings. Okay. And then I ended up losing all this money. And it ended up being such a pain in the butt to figure out where to store these Pilates rings. And then my mother actually helped me figure out like giving them away because we couldn't like sell them and get rid of them. And even then, I was like, okay, I feel a little bit dumb about this experience, but it taught me an invaluable lesson not to do something if I'm not 100% into it, not to force myself to do something I think is a good idea. I need to stick with what is inspiring me, what is, I'm going to put 100% of myself in. And so even that could be considered a failure. Like my Pilates rings thing was a failure. But for me, it just was a little bit of a reminder of, okay, we don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
We don't do things like that. If I'm not really in it, I'm not doing it.
Right. Do what inspires you. And the thing is, people always feel like you have to have it figured out when you graduate from high school and you're going into college. But, we all have different points in our lives where our trajectory changes. So naturally, what, motivated you when you were in high school is no longer going to motivate you when you get into college. And you may have to change your career path a couple of times. I
Yes.
mean, when I was in college, I was going to school with people who were like 45 who had worked a job for 20, 30 years that were going back because they no longer felt like the job that they were working really gave them a sense of purpose anymore. And I feel like we're always kind of working to grow ourselves and figure out what our purpose is and where we should be in life. And it's not just always one job that's going to be your end all be all. And I feel like a lot of people need to release that attachment to, okay, I'm in this job, I got to stay in this job. When things happen in life, you got to just go with the flow sometimes. Sometimes that tragedy that happened with the family member or that divorce that happened with your wife is going to take you to the next level in your life where you're going to take off and find even better opportunities. And you just got to let that go, release it.
Uh, and I really believe in that. I really believe in that. It's like going with the river instead of like trying to go against it.
Right, right.
Just like flow with it. Because I do believe that life is like a dance.
Mhm.
And let's just say it's the tango, okay? And you show up and you look beautiful and you know your steps and you're prepared and you are ready to dance. But then you need your partner to lead you. And I look at my partner as life, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, right? So I
Mhm.
look at my partner like that. So it's like, I am prepared. I am ready to dance with you, but you need to lead me.
Right.
So it's not sit on your couch and do nothing ever and try to manifest. I don't believe it.
You got to put in the work. You got to always do
Yeah,
the work.
you have to put in the work, but I also think that you have to put in the work and you have to let it go and then let life do its thing. That's exactly what's happened with everything in my life, whether it was something I wanted to happen or something I didn't want to happen.
Right. Yeah, and your book inspired me also because a lot of what you touched on were things that I was experiencing in regards to the job. I was working a job that was stable, in a lot of people's eyes, and I was not happy. I wanted to get into the realm of podcasting and I was scared to take that leap of faith. I didn't know how I was going to do it, what I was going to talk about, how I was going to fund the project. All these self-limiting beliefs went through my mind. And then I released that thought of, oh, I can't do this or this is too hard. And I sat down, I disciplined myself, and ultimately I was able to get it going. And, once, and I'm happy now, and I could, looking back on my life before, I'm like, how the hell did I ever stay in this job for 16 years? I hated it. I love being able to wake up on my own accord, talk about whatever I want to talk about. I love the freedom that being a creative gives you. But it is a lot of hard work at the same time, too, that you have to put in. And you have to love what you do and do what you love.
Exactly. No, it's so true. And you're making that happen. Also, did you say like you Uber drive?
Yeah. Gotta make
Yeah.
some money any way.
See, so like you're making this all happen and and kind of like the way I did as well.
Hmm.
It's like you let go of the security blanket
Right.
and you're like, I'm gonna forge my own path, which is so much more exciting.
It is.
I mean, didn't it feel like going into that job for all those years and doing the same thing? Didn't it feel kind of like a prison?
It did. It definitely felt like a prison. And I was ultimately working hard to obtain someone else's dream. The person that I'm working for had the dream of having this business, and I'm the one putting all this effort into making things work for someone else. And I thought to myself, I could be putting this energy into making things work for myself and my dreams.
Yeah.
And I did that, and there was a lot of people, why don't you just go back to your other job? And, you have all of the naysayers that have so much to
Yeah.
say because you're not following the traditional, idea of what everybody else is doing. If you're not being a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, and you talk about this in your book, that you have to do what works best for you. And you
Yes.
can't be so constrained to the societal norms, you know.
Yes. No, it's absolutely true because you're here for a short amount of time. Like our lives are actually like a blink of an eye. And no one's getting out of here alive.
Sorry,
The
sorry to tell y'all.
game is rigged. The game
Only
is
six
rigged
feet.
and we're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay. Um
The truth is the truth.
the truth is the truth. So it's like, well, what are you gonna do with the time that you have here?
Right.
Are you going to take some chances? Are you going to have some faith and go out on a leap of faith and say, you know what? I tried some things. I did some things. A lot of the things I did not meet the expectations of how big I wanted them to be. And I talk about that in my book as well. There were my activewear line. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this like big office. We're going to have stores everywhere. I thought all these things and that ended up not happening. But it's also given me so many other opportunities and things. And if the business was booming like that, I wouldn't have had the time to travel the world and write this book. So I really do believe, even when it doesn't meet your expectations, to have faith that things are working in your best interest, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Right. Because that's, when you have hundreds of employees, that's hundreds of problems that you have to deal with and, figuring things out. And it can be very stressful, and you have to be able to have the bandwidth to kind of help with that as well. So, people think sometimes when you become an entrepreneur that you're going to generate millions of dollars or billions of dollars. And sometimes you're just going to be a hundred thousandaire or a thousandaire.
Yeah.
You're just going to be able to get by and have a little extra on the side to be a world traveler like yourself slash influencer and do all these cool collabs with the Ritz Carlton and Audi and all these amazing things and these opportunities that have come your way from taking that leap of faith and figuring out what works best for you in life. And like you say in your book, you're like, I did not make what I thought that I would, but you're still able to sustain yourself, and you've been able to travel around the world, with doing the blogging that led into that wonderful opportunity of you going to Bali and all these wonderful places all across the world. And so essentially like you kind of wound up everybody else because you didn't have to pay out of pocket for it.
Yeah.
Doing it for free. You did it the smart way. Work smarter, not harder.
No, that's true. And I do believe that. I do believe that. And it's I don't consider the things that I do work because I really enjoy it. I love doing hotel collabs. It's so much fun for me. I love writing. I love writing. Like writing my book was such a joy for me. It
Mhm.
was really such a amazing, because I would get to this space where they call, you're in the zone.
Mhm.
And you really feel like inspiration is coming down like from the heavens into your fingertips. And you
Mhm.
get all these ideas and your brain starts to fire off. It's and you kind of I didn't do an outline with my book. I didn't do all the things and it wasn't really pre-organized. It was just this flow. Now, granted, the publisher, when they come in, they help you like make sure everything makes sense and organizes it and all the things. But
Mhm.
I was just, when I was writing, it was just like flowing out of me. I was like, let me just get this all on paper.
Now, how long did it take you to write your book?
It took me about a year, 2 years, 2 years.
Mhm.
Because I also went very slowly with it. This was my first book. And I wrote most of it when I was in Bali. That's why I was almost going to say a year. And then I moved to Berlin and I finished it there. But the majority of it was finished when I was living in Bali. But it was finished in Berlin. But I really I took like a break. I took like, I don't know, like a 5 month break on it and didn't look at it for a while. And then because I didn't know how I wanted to write the last couple of chapters, I was kind of waiting for the inspiration to come in.
Mhm.
So, and that was the thing with this book. Like I said, I didn't have it pre-planned. I wasn't like, okay, let me just, get this done. It wasn't a get this done project. It was okay, let me flow. I'm going to write when I want to write. On the days I don't want to write, I'm not going to write. I
Mhm.
wanted this to be different than anything I've ever done. I wanted it to be completely inspired and not, I have to do this.
Right. Exactly. I do this on my own time and I'm going to take my time to make sure it levels up to whatever I want it to be.
Exactly.
And it did
Exactly.
just that.
And it did. Thank you.
Yeah. So in your book now, you outline about a lot of people that deal with depression. So in your book, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, it states 21 million adults and that or 1 out of 8 experience depression. Now, what do you think is the cause of people experiencing depression and why do you feel like it's so many people that experience this?
Well, I think it's so many people because life is hard
Mm,
and they don't in our learning system and within our families. I mean, I wasn't told that life is really hard and here are some tools to prepare yourself on how to deal with things. I wasn't kind of told that. It was like your parents are, they can be so amazing because they try to do everything to make you happy and you're make sure you're safe and then they don't, because they do that, they don't want to see you unhappy.
right,
Like, and I get that because even when my mom is sad or hurt, it like breaks my heart. I'm like, I don't want her to be sad or hurt. I want her to be happy
right.
because it breaks my heart. So I could just imagine, like, if you have a child and you see that they're sad or hurt or insecure, it makes you feel bad as a parent. So you're like, stop being like that. I gave you everything. Be happy. So I think a lot of this comes from us not being real about the shit that life throws at you. Sorry, the stuff
Mhm.
that life throws at
You
you,
good, you good.
Okay, okay. Um, and I think it's partially not being real about that. And
Mhm.
then when you experience it, you go, what is wrong with me? Why is this happening to me? There must be something wrong with me. Because you don't know, you don't really get that everybody goes through this.
Right,
Everybody has like, trials and tribulations in life. So I think part of thinking it's only you is very
right.
depressing. And then you also now have social media, which social media can be such a great thing. I love social media. I've done amazing things with it. And it could be a very big source of inspiration.
Mhm.
But it also could be a very big source of insecurity because you're comparing the way you look with other people, you're comparing your life with other people. I think the comparisons, and I write about this,
Right.
um, comparing yourself to other people is can really lead you into a depression because you're like, I don't have as much money as them. I'm not as good looking as them. I'm not going on vacations like them. I mean, people even compare their relationships. Oh, is my relationship with my boyfriend like better than theirs? She went there with her boyfriend and and it's just like, oh my gosh, this if you once you get on that choo-choo train, it, it
Man, you don't know
it's
where you're gonna go.
yeah, it's like it's painful. It's
Yeah.
really painful. And humans naturally think the grass is always greener on the other
Mhm.
side. And it's not.
Right.
I think the grass is greener for the people that genuinely have peace and contentment with themselves.
Mhm.
I think that grass is really green.
Absolutely.
But I think that's what makes your grass green. But but that also takes years of experience in life to understand that. And I think when you're younger and you don't have that, it's really hard.
Mhm. And our parents, a lot of times they do have great intentions and good intentions, but they're also learning and trying to figure out themselves as well as how to be a parent and a wife or a husband and all of these things that are going on outside of them just being a parent, that sometimes they don't have the answers, or they get lost, or they get stuck as a parent, and they don't know how to be supportive. And I feel like even in the realm of just being a parent, a lot of times, like the people, because I don't have any kids, so a lot of the people that I know that do have kids, they tell
Mhm.
me about how a lot of other parents are just so judgmental. And you can't be real a lot of times about what parenthood is really like. You can't tell them about the downsides of parenting. When your child is dealing with mental health, who do you really go to as a support system? How do you even work through that? Because that's not an easy thing. So, do you feel like while you were dealing with your depression, that was something that your parents didn't really understand how to, work through that with you? Do you feel it
Oh,
was hard?
yeah. My parents did not understand, nor did I really tell them because I just felt like it was not something that they were interested in hearing. And to be honest,
Mm.
I love my parents so much, but if I'm being really real here, I feel like it would have made it worse because I feel like if I would have gone to them and told them how I was feeling,
Mhm.
they would blame it on me.
Mm.
You know, it was, kind of like, I think my parents worked so hard, and my father was an immigrant too from Italy.
Mhm.
And he grew up really, poor, where some days they didn't have food. And I mean, post World War II was rough. So I think for him also, it's like, I did everything for you. Like I gave you everything. Like just go out there and do good things and achieve.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
I just, yeah, I really didn't have the support of my family at that time.
And I'm sure that was really hard for you. And so the fact that you were able to run into these healers and get into yoga and meditation and crystals and all of these wonderful facets that kind of helped you propel yourself into becoming this wonderful entrepreneur slash influencer, and you've been able to do these great things. I feel like there's so much power in spirituality that people don't know. Religion is one thing, and that's a great thing on its own if that's, the route that you want to go. But I feel
Yeah.
like spirituality really gets to the root of the issue,
Mhm.
because you learn that in spirituality you start to think back to things that may have triggered it, like in your childhood you talked about the things that you went through and the things that you experienced, and how that the validation that you needed constantly from people led you into the job that you were in Hollywood, and dealing with those people who you had to
Yes.
always show up for and prove something to even the relationships that you were in with men, who you were
Yeah.
running into. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. Now, tell us about some of these trauma bonds that you built, with these men, because I think a lot of people don't really talk about this authentically, but you do in your book. So enlighten the people because we haven't, for those that obviously it hasn't been out yet. So, I'm sure that people want to know about your experiences with the men.
Oh my gosh, but I have so many though. Which one in particular do
I
you?
was the Italian guy who wasn't really attractive or anything, but he would always love bomb you.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Because there
Okay,
was
okay.
two Italian men, but
Yeah,
I'm talking about the first one you wrote
I
about.
love my Italians. I have to say,
I'm sure you do.
I do love them. Um, I it's really okay, so I actually love the time we live in right now because there's just so much about out there to warn women about narcissistic sociopathic men.
Hmm.
There's so much, which is so fantastic. But when I was dating these guys, there really wasn't anything out there. You didn't have as many shows. It wasn't readily available. So many people weren't really talking about it. People weren't really talking about narcissism until a few years ago.
Mm. Became
It's
like the loaded word for everybody. It's rolling
Yeah,
off everybody's tongue.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But it is a real thing. It is a real thing. And you really do want to steer clear of those people. But I definitely was in a loop where I was attracted to these people and I dated these people. And one of the biggest things was because I was insecure and I needed validation, they would give you the lip service.
Mm,
We're like a normal guy, let's say you go out with and he likes you, but he's not going to tell you how amazing you are and blah, blah, blah. These guys will, they'll love bomb you.
mm,
And so that was kind of my Achilles heel was because I needed the validation. Then I found myself with these people, and it's very painful when all of a sudden they just disappear.
right.
And you're like, wait, I thought you thought I was so amazing and you loved me and I'm the best woman you've ever met in your life. And then they're like,
Poof,
they
gone like
go
Casper.
on to the next
They're their
woman.
apparition.
And then they come back. Then they come back.
Mm. They love to come back.
They love to come back. They love to
Hmm.
come back and it's a big game for them. And so
Hmm.
I was in that cycle for a while and then I thought, okay, I cannot do this to myself anymore. This is so painful. So then when I would go out with those people and I would see that they were a narcissist, I would just run away. I'd get really scared because I didn't trust myself with those people. I didn't trust my attraction.
Hmm.
And I was trying to protect myself. And that was really annoying because it's like, oh gosh, I'm just still giving them my power by being afraid of them
Mm,
and my attraction toward them.
hmm.
But then as I kept like healing and growing, I then went out with one guy who was like this. And I wasn't scared of him. I wasn't attracted to him. I was like, I'm cool. Like I know what this is and I don't want this.
Hmm.
And it was so amazing to get to that point.
In the universe, they work in funny ways. They will, so once you kind of figure out what the trigger is that's causing you to run into all of these type of men, they'll give you one last test or a couple more tests to see if
Yeah.
you actually really learn your lesson. They're like, all right, well, you say you don't want this type of man anymore. You don't want this narcissistic man anymore. Let me give you a test to actually see if you're ready to move on to the next step and attract actually healthy relationships with people. And I've experienced things like this of my own, not in the sense of them being narcissistic, but I was meeting men who were in relationships. And
Mm,
I couldn't understand what that was about because I wouldn't consciously go out looking for these guys, but in me talking to them, I would find out that they have girlfriends. And there was this weird thing about myself where even though I knew it was wrong to talk to them, I would still try to vie for their attention.
mm,
And I was like, well, what the hell? Why do I feel this way? I know this is wrong and I need to let go, but I can't. And so I went to a spiritualist one time and I was talking to her about my issues. And she was like,
I
this
love it.
really hit home for me. She was like, what happened to you when you were 5 years old? And I'm like, honey, I don't even know what happened to me 10 minutes ago, let alone when I was 5. She's like, well, let me help you refresh in your memory. So she tells me, she was like, that's the age in which your father abandoned you. And she was like, from there, you had to take on being the dad because you had to help your mom, who was a single mother. And from there, you've learned to try to vie for men's attention who were not emotionally available. So with these guys that you're attracting, they're physically available because they want to give you, some sexy, sexy time,
Yeah, for
but they
sure.
don't want to give you their heart.
No.
And subconsciously you're still harboring those feelings from your father. And I thought I was over, my dad leaving me at a young age. I thought that I healed all of those wounds. We talked and everything, but I still subconsciously was harboring these feelings and trying to find validation in these men that I was attracting. And once I realized that, I stopped attracting other men like that. I did get tests after, but then it was smooth sailing after that. But
Oh,
it's
I love
amazing how
that.
these things work. But as long as you're learning and you're working on yourself, that's most important.
Yeah, no, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Because it is really true is we go out in the world and we basically attract like our trauma from childhood.
Hmm.
And it's not like you're going after guys that are exactly like your dad, or I'm going after guys that are like my dad. It's not like that, but there's strands of 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 that energy in the people that we're talking to. That's
Right.
why it's really difficult if you were a woman, let's say that, you know, you were abused by your family members, then you go into abusive relationships.
Hmm.
And it's really hard to break that cycle. And you could look at these women and go, why aren't you leaving your husband? You know, he's beating you up.
Right.
But because for them, that's almost like that's what they experienced as love in their household. Like a woman that experienced really a good conscious family that, gave her unconditional love and wasn't abusive, she's not, a guy hits her once and she's out. But
Right.
she probably won't even attract that guy to go out with. Like he'll be like, no. And she'll be like, no, about him pretty quickly. Like you won't even get yourself in that situation because the energy's not aligning.
Right.
So, and it was crazy because I think you read this in the book, but I remember I was all like crazy about this Italian guy because I had felt emotions with him that I hadn't felt before. And I went up to my meditation instructor who looked like Santa Claus with tattoos everywhere. He was,
Did you say you look like a Hell's Angel member?
yeah, he looked like a Hell's Angel. Exactly, exactly. And and I was telling him about my experience with this guy and the intense feelings. And when you feel that, you want to keep feeling it, even though it's somewhat painful, but it like is this love and this pain. It makes you feel so alive and it's intoxicating. And I said to him, will I experience this with somebody else? And he goes, you will learn to love something different.
Mm.
And I thought that was so powerful. Not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear, yeah, you'll get that again. No worries. I wanted to hear, but because I wanted to feel that again. But he goes, you'll learn to love something different. And that's the whole thing. You had to learn something different.
Mhm.
I had to learn something different, learn to love something different. You have to shift the energy. Otherwise, you're going to keep attracting what you don't want.
Right. People that are on the same frequency level that you're on. You know,
Yeah.
it's all about, creating healthy structures and bonds for yourself. So that way you don't attract those types of people in your life, you know. And I know you also talk about, friendships and women sticking together and how that's been very challenging for a lot of women historically to do because we're always in competition with each other. Now, during this time of you going through your depression, do you really feel like you had a healthy outlet of friends that were kind of able to understand you or kind of help you through what you were going through? Because I know you also did talk about, women that you encountered who, were not necessarily your friends, they were more like acquaintances that you felt like you were more comfortable with talking to. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I went through a big like cleaning house
Hmm.
because it kind of goes back to like you learn to love something different and attracting something different. I was learning to love myself, and I knew that by loving myself, if I love myself and I want to love myself, I can't hang out with these people anymore.
Hmm.
It wasn't aligned with where I was going. So I really did. I mean, I didn't get rid of all my friends
Hmm.
because some of my friends are really amazing people.
Hmm.
So my close ones, but I did clean house with,
Hmm.
of course, the superficial ones
Hmm.
that I didn't really feel cared about me, and nor did I really care about them. We didn't have a deep relationship. And so, and then I think that when you have the courage to take the first steps and go on your path and say, okay, God, universe, life, help me because I really want to feel better. I want to be better. I want to live my life's purpose and just please help me. And I do believe that they send you people that help you. And at this time, I had a woman who was a therapist who would just talk to me for hours on the phone, and she wouldn't even charge me. We became friends and she really helped me. And then there were other people that came and would help me and guide me through my confusion and figuring things out. So I believe that the universe brings you little angels on your way.
Absolutely. Brings you your own little squad, your own little team.
And it might not even be people that you keep in touch with, or it could be someone that you meet for a short while and they just shed something that you needed to hear. They say something you need to hear, and you're like, oh, whoa, okay, that was like divine intervention right there.
Right. And in letting people go too, because I feel like people always feel like when you have to clean house, a lot of times you have to address the problem head on that you may be having with a particular friend or, a loved one or a family member or such. And a lot of sometimes doing the work is not doing anything, like meaning just don't answer the phone when they call.
Yeah.
Leave them on red, honey. It's okay. They can be left in wonder why you don't want to answer them and think about all the things that they may have done to create you to not want to respond to them. It doesn't always have to be this big thing. And I feel like some people think like you always have to tell people exactly, why you don't want to talk to them anymore. Sometimes you just need to ease your way out, Just say I'm busy. I ain't got time. That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I definitely think it depends on, who that person is, the relationship you're having, if it's like a narcissistic personality type, you do want to just ease your way out and
Right.
just go by, because anything you say to them, they're going to gaslight you.
Right.
So and they don't, or they'll manipulate you and say, oh, I'm sorry, and then never change the behavior. So with those people, you need to ease out. But I think with you know people, like good decent people, I think it's always good to have a conversation. And sometimes friendships and whatever just need a timeout. Like I
Right.
think I'm on a timeout right now with one of my friends where it's just like I don't need her right now and she doesn't need me, but when she does, or she wants to talk and I do, we'll come back together like nothing ever happened, because nothing really did happen, but I just think we're in two different places right now.
Hmm. And that's okay. And
That is
when,
life.
yeah, and when the time is right, you'll either come back together or, you may just stay distant friends where you may just get to a point where you just check on each other every blue moon. Hey girl, how's it going? Just kind of calling to check in on you, see how you doing. Well, I'm good, girl.
Ah,
All right. Well, you keep up the good work in your life and I'll keep up the good work of mine, honey. No love
exactly.
lost.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what now, prior to you finding this healer, were you someone that was spiritual or religious, more religious during that time?
Well, I grew up Catholic and I went to private Catholic school most of my life. But I would say like Catholic for me is more of a culture because I'm Italian and Irish.
Hmm.
So it's more of a cultural thing than and I don't mind going to church and I do like to go into churches and pray and ask God for help. But
Hmm.
I would say I'm definitely more spiritual. Like I have a real relationship with God. And I mean, I talk to my spirit guides and angels all the time.
Hmm. Now, what are some ways in which you connect with your spirit guides? And I know you also talk about dreams in your book. You say those are great. That is a great tool for you to be able to get messages from God and your spirit guides
Yeah.
and such. So
No,
can you elaborate a little bit more on that for me as well?
so I will talk to my spirit guides and I'll just be in my, a house alone and I'll just be right on my little couch over there. And I'm thinking about something and I'm struggling with what should I do? And then I just say, hey guys, just let me know. Please give me a sign. Like, let me know what I should be doing or what's up.
Hmm.
And then within the next couple of days, like I get the answer in some way. Whether it's just a feeling of, okay, no, now I know what the right course is, or
Hmm.
if it's a dream. So I used to do this with guys because I had that pattern
Hmm.
and I would fall into attraction with not very good people and it scared me. So this one guy I just had these crazy feelings for. I prayed and I said, please show me who he is.
Hmm.
'Cause I'm having these crazy feelings and I just feel like something's up and I please show me who he is. And then in the dream, he like shape shifted
Hmm.
in my dream. And I was like, oh my God. And so I realized that this person isn't really who he appears to be. And yeah. So my dreams, they show me a lot of things. When I need to be shown something, they show me.
And for me as well, a lot of times I have a problem with second guessing myself. I'm very intuitive, but sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You have some of these self-doubt moments.
Oh,
And when I do think about things before I go to bed, in my dreams, a lot of times the messages will come to me and they're clear as day. And that's because when you are sleeping, you're not distracted by anything. You're able to kind of see and focus on what is happening in front of you. Whereas when you're going through your day to day, you're kind of distracted by other things that might be in the way. And it causes you sometimes to miss out on these important messages that might be blaring in your face as clear as day. But because you won't pay attention and you're distracted, you miss out on these messages. So I definitely agree in that dreams definitely speak to you and will give you a lot of messages and information that's very vital. Because a lot of people have been taught to think that your dreams are just dreams, like it's no big thing. But there's been some very monumental things that have come up in my dreams about people, jobs, people not that I shouldn't deal with, relationships, everything. And so
yeah.
people just gotta listen.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great time for the subconscious to be working itself out. And recently, my dreams have been like, it's so interesting. I'm going into a parallel universe almost,
Hmm.
and it's me in a different life.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is so interesting is and I'm having consistent dreams of me in like these different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be in this world. I'm so happy. I'm so happy like to be in my life, doing what I'm doing. I am a better person in this world. I am a happier person in this world. It's so interesting. And I'm really actually grateful for it. I mean, the dreams are kind of painful to go through as I'm dreaming, but when I wake up, I'm just like very grateful for my life.
So explain a little bit of this parallel world and what are some of the experiences that you're going through in these worlds or realms they may be.
Um, so okay, so with dreams, you can forget them like very easily. So
Hmm.
what I do remember is just this happened like it started like a few months ago, and it's been pretty consistent for a few months. Like I last night I can't even remember what my dreams were, but for a few months I was having these dreams where I was just in a different world. Like I had a different job. It was like the people around me were the same people, but they were like different. And it was me, but I was different. And I remember in this one dream, my anger got out of control and I said things that healthy me right now would not say and not do.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's that's the best way I can describe it. I'm just, and maybe it's not really me in parallel universes. Maybe it's just me processing had I not done the work, I would have ended up like this. If
Mm.
I didn't follow my path, these would be some of the problems that I would be dealing with.
That's an interesting take, and seeing how things have kind of blown up in the entertainment industry. I mean, who's to say what how things would have gone for you if you continued on to that path in life, and didn't allow the universe to take you to a different path that was much more lighter and happier and, a lot more fruitful, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, a lot more fulfilling. I would
Yeah.
have been a very unhappy lady.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you took that leap of faith. Now, now, okay. So, what is a takeaway that you feel like you want readers to get when they're reading your book, The Confused Girl?
I would say the main takeaway is to start looking at confusion as a virtue and start looking at your life as one grand adventure.
Mm.
So that when you do get hit with confusing times and moments, you don't you don't fall into a depression, you don't beat yourself up, but you use it as a an opportunity for something greater for yourself.
Mhm. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let everybody know where they can get those wonderful leggings and how they can connect with you.
And pre-order the book.
Yeah,
So
and pre-order the book, of course.
so you can go to my website, confusedgirlinthecity.com,
Mhm.
and you can pre-order the book from there. It's on Amazon, it's at Barnes and Noble. Um, and yeah, confusedgirlinthecity.com. Also, I have all of my yoga clothes there. And then at Confused Girl LA is my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook page. And you can see all my shenanigans there as well.
Wonderful. And then the book will be out May of 2025, right?
Yes,
All
yes.
right. So y'all make sure to go ahead and get you a copy, pre-order today. Give it, as a gift to someone else for the new year. Run up Giovanna's register.
Yes.
Go broke this Christmas.
Please, please.
Yes. Well, once again, I want to thank you so much, Giovanna, for vibing out with me today. It was a pleasure to have you on. And for everybody else, I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of Vibe Selection. As you already know, I am your host, Kyra. Stay safe, stay healthy out there. Bye.
Bye.